I guess, with BITS and, all the work you've been doing with the work integrated learning program, I mean, it'd be great to hear your thoughts and perspectives on how you see the online upskilling segment evolve, and also how, established incumbent providers like yourself will, I guess, participate in a meaningful manner in this tech-led, almost transition or transformation that's happening in the sector.
Thank you, Amitabh. So for BITS Pilani, this whole adoption of education technologies, frankly, did not happen because of crumbling of some walls suddenly, or the pandemic bringing it in. As Amitabh just mentioned, we have this fairly large division which we call as work integrated learning programs, which is focused on education of working professionals. And the basic philosophy behind that division is integrating learning with work, with the workplace itself. And when the initial education technology started coming in, we found that the work integrated learning program model would immediately benefit out of this. So things like something which is becoming now very pervasive: synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, hybrid learning, blended learning, flipped classroom model, which almost everyone is talking about right now. We started implementing these models almost a decade back. Almost half a decade back, we started adopting, for a different reason, not for on-campus, but for working professionals, started investing and adopting models like digital labs. I think Dr. Alexander just mentioned about this. Digital labs, not just in areas like computer science, which I think from an implementation angle are easier to achieve, but also digital labs in areas like electronics and electrical technologies, mechanical engineering, automotive engineering. So we at that time itself, started experimenting and started deploying those models. Now the benefit we got was when the pandemic happened. I think for BITS Pilani, comparatively, I think the transition was far more easier, because a lot of our educators were already teaching these working professionals from their locations, so they were very familiar with this whole online education model. I know in some cases, when the institutions shifted to online, the students were far more savvy on educational technologies than the educators. In our case, in many cases, it was just the opposite. So we had professors who had already for many years used technology to teach working professionals, and they were now transitioning to on-campus students. So it was just the opposite situation. However, our experience, with adoption of education technology was far more organic, because we did this. There was no sword hanging on our head that we have to do that. So it was, done organically over the years. We would discover a technology, we will see it can be integrated into our education experience. We'll work towards it, pilot test it, and then take our own time integrating it, well in the system. Even the kind of providers, if I, look back, 10 years back, there were many providers for learning management systems, content development, but you would see that most of these providers, one would be good at doing one or two things. Not, as they say in America, not from soup to nuts. So you'll have, one organization providing you one service or one piece of the puzzle. The other one is good at the other, and they would approach working more like vendors. I think the opportunity today, when I, start comparing it with the vendor ecosystem at that time, and now I would say when I see the EdTech companies operate, it's more of a partner ecosystem. So they approach in a far more partner-like way, are approaching this in a manner which is more about, co-creating something, rather than, leaving their product or licensing their software or platform, and then leaving the educational institutions alone and struggling and figuring out how to do that. So I think that's one big change. I think the institutions who are now beginning to accelerate adopting, these new technologies should take advantage and see, engage with these EdTech players in a more partner-like fashion, and the possibility of the success would be far more. There are, I think, three areas, I think immediately which come to my mind when I think of where the EdTech players could also help institutions. One is especially in technology areas, if you plan to do sector-specific programs. I'm sorry. We all know that the industry in India is geographically distributed in different clusters, and educational and institutions may not be there in all those clusters. So, for example, a top institution in automotive engineering identifies an area like automotive electronics, because automotive industry is all about connected cars. Now, if you do not have presence in an automotive cluster in Pune or Gujarat or Manesar near Gurgaon, how do you really launch a program for those working professionals? Now, it becomes far easier if you integrate education technologies, and launch of these niche programs would be possible. Second, we always say that universities have to look 10 years beyond, while for-profit businesses have to look at the immediate demand more, but the universities always have to look at 5 years, 10 years hence. Imagine if you think of launching a program which is completely focused on future technologies. Now at BITS, whenever we are thinking of a product portfolio, we think in three terms. One is domains which are stable, that means there is an established demand already there. Then the domains which are growing, that means there is clear evidence next 2 to 3 years people would be needed in that particular domain. And then there are domains which are emerging. It is very, I would say, easy to launch programs in stable domains and perhaps also in the growing domains. But if let's say we have to today launch a program which will actually help people develop solutions for metaverse or AR or VR, it's not that immediately you'll find a critical mass of demand which will justify creating of a program. However, with technologies which are possible in EdTech, many of these things are possible. So that's one. Number two, big area I think where education technologies can work, I think Dr. Alexander alluded to getting experts from outside to India. I think there are a lot of experts in India. I think EdTech also gives an opportunity to get some of the brands and experts in higher education in India to also meet requirements worldwide now. I think Amitabh would know this more, but at the price and value combinations which India can today provide when you take our programs outside could be very, very attractive. So one can make those beginnings rather than waiting for big decisions and making heavy investments in creating a brick and mortar presence. It's better to use education technology and create that particular presence. And third, extremely important, I think there's a lot of criticism about industry and academia getting together and doing programs. I think with EdTech, doing that has become far, far easier. Imagine you can now have a classroom where you can actually get a practitioner to co-teach. You can get people to design programs together, all because there is education technology which is playing there. So many such areas, are ripe to be taken with the combination of educational institution or collaboration of education institution and the EdTech players, who are there in the market today.